Hello and welcome. The latest standoff between the Mamata Banerjee government and the centre is over a report of an NHRC committee looking into post-poll violence in the state. A 50-page report that says there's no rule of law, only law of rulers in Bengal. A report that has sought a CBI probe into post-poll violence and slammed the state police for inaction. Citing a politico-bureaucratic criminal nexus in Bengal, the report says that there was retributive violence by the ruling party supporters against the main opposition party supporters. Houses, shops, vehicles of the main opposition party workers were vandalized and looted. It says that there was palpable fear among victims against the police and goons of the ruling party. Now, taking the West Bengal government head-on, the NHRC report goes on to say that the West Bengal government responded in a piecemeal, incomplete manner to the committee's queries. Only 14% of the accused were arrested. Bail was granted to 80% of those arrested, and less than 3% of the accused are still in jail, making a mockery of the system, it says. It goes on to say that it's quite evident that the police did not or do not have the courage to take action against the looming goons of the ruling dispensation, and that the entire might of the government machinery was used for furthering political objectives of the ruling party. Now, the NHRC has recommended an investigation to be carried out by a special investigation team of the CBI, the Central Bureau of Investigation, saying that cases should be investigated by a court-monitored special investigation team. The report has named 123 political leaders among accused and suspects, including several senior Trinamool leaders. Now, in a sharp reaction, Mamata Banerjee has accused the BJP of using, and I'm quoting here, impartial agencies to hatch a conspiracy against her government. Because of a political vendetta, the BJP is misusing some institutions to malign the image of Bengal. They cannot digest the electoral defeat in West Bengal, she has said. The Chief Minister has also charged that the NHRC report given to the High Court in a sealed cover, in a sealed envelope, was leaked to the press before the state government could give its rejoinder to the NHRC report. And she asks, what about Uttar Pradesh? Now, as per media reports, at least two TMC leaders mentioned in the report have said that they will take legal action against the NHRC. The NHRC has denied the charges of leaking the report. Now, violence in West Bengal after the election results were announced was widely reported in the press, right? But in most of these incidents, it was suggested that it was the TMC that was responsible. For instance, take a look at this. Like on the 2nd of May, after the election, in Haldia, Suvendu Adhikari's car was attacked after the results were announced. In North Kolkata, a 35-year-old BJP worker, Abhijit Sarkar, was killed. In the South 24 Paraganas, a 45-year-old BJP worker, Haran Adhikari, was hacked to death in front of his son and his father. The next day, on the 3rd of May, the press reported that again in the 24 Paraganas North, the BJP office was ransacked, crude bombs were thrown inside. However, there have also been a few reports of TMC workers also being attacked, albeit much less than those of the BJP, raising questions over the NHRC's report, which makes it seem that only BJP workers were assaulted in the post-poll violence. Now, take a look at these reports that came up in the press. On the 3rd of May, in Ketugram, a TMC supporter, Srinivas Ghosh, killed allegedly by BJP supporters. In Jamalpur, two TMC men, Saju Sheikh, Bipash Pal, killed in clashes with the BJP. So, the question is, as the West Bengal Chief Minister says, are impartial agencies being misused by the centre? Let's do a reality check. From the TMC, we have Dr. Shashi Panja, Minister of State for Women and Child Development and Social Welfare for the Government of West Bengal. PKD Nambiar, political analyst, BJP supporter. Jawahar Sarkar, former CEO of Prasar Bharati, and Sanjay Hegde, senior advocate of the Supreme Court. PKD Nambiar, to you first. Mahua Moitra, the TMC MP, has tweeted today. We can play up that tweet here so you can take a look at it, Mr. Nambiar. Arun Mishra, she says, while sitting SC judge, publicly said that the Prime Minister was, and I'm quoting here, internationally acclaimed visionary, a versatile genius. Can we get that tweet up? Who thought globally and acted locally. She then goes on to say that he got a post-retirement reward of the NHRC chairman. The same NHRC files concocted biased and anti-Bengal reports. Hashtag can't fool everyone all of the time. PKD Nambiar, this government has done a huge disservice by appointing a Supreme Court judge to the post of the NHRC chair just months after he retired. Now, obviously, questions are being raised about the impartiality, the politicization of an organization like the NHRC when the focus should be on the findings of the report.
Well, Sarah, there are two parts of your question. One is, if it is talking about the tweet of Ms. Moitra, it gives me an impression that there was no violence happened, post-poll violence happened in the state of West Bengal, which wherein 28 people were, the BJP supporters were killed. And
we're not debating that tonight, Mr.
No, I'm just coming to the, Sarah, please give me a second. Just get, because you talked about the tweet of Ms. Moitra. From there we take. Second,
the contents of the tweet of
all the houses which were burnt, which happened automatically. All the 80,000 people.
No, I am talking about whether a disservice has been done to the nation by appointing somebody to chair an institute that is sorely required in this country. And creating a situation where one can raise doubts about, the veracity of a report that comes out of the NHRC.
Sarah, if you really look at from the history of India, ever since the NHRC was born in this country, most of the time the NHRC chiefs have always been Supreme Court judges or otherwise the chief justices. Okay. Just imagine the UPA 1 and 2 time, Justice Balakrishnan, there are so many justices, and of course my good friend Sanjay is there. He will give you all the list of the people. I don't want to lose my time on that.
No, you're absolutely on point here. So go ahead.
Yeah, so I am saying that is the way. So is there appointing a justice as an NHRC chief, is there any rule of law is being violated? Then I would definitely like to have a discussion on that.
In this case, so is there a rule of law that has been violated? Let's check into that. Have they been appointed 11 months after they resigned?
Is that
improper? Yeah. Before
this question is to me. As I said, if there is a violation of appointing a Supreme Court retired justice is being done, definitely we all should question that. But why we are questioning it today? When only after the report have come against the West Bengal Chief Minister or his government, why are you questioning today? Why this question have happened about 15 days ago?
Let's go across Sanjay Hegde. What does the law say? Does the law bar judges from taking up post-retirement assignments? Is there a cooling off period?
There is no cooling off period, and I have long advocated. I wrote a piece in the Hindu when Chief Justice Sadashivam was made a governor. Now I even am on record objecting to Chief Justice Ranjan Gogoi being a nominated member of the Rajya Sabha.
Sanjay ji, Justice Balakrishnan. Also, you just mentioned the name.
No.
Ranjan Gogoi was the nearest, Mr. Nambiar. We can get through. We'll play all the judges who have been appointed. But in the last, since the year 2000, Justin Gogoi, of course, was the biggest headline.
As far as the NHRC is concerned, the statute required a former Chief Justice of India. So it was reserved for a former Chief Justice. And there are plenty of Chief Justices of India who could have been considered for this. The statute was amended to say a retired Supreme Court judge, and Justice Mishra is the first such appointee. Much before my time, Mr. C.K. Daftari once said that there were forward-looking judges and there were judges who were looking forward. So this is not new. As far as Justice Arun Mishra is concerned, he has been Chief Justice of Calcutta during the time that the Trinamool Congress was in power. I believe that when he fell ill also, the Trinamool Congress government of the day saw to it that every facility was given to him. So right now I don't see why there has to be so much hostility. But I do wish that judges after retirement safeguard their own reputation. There was Justice Rumapal from Calcutta who refused to even take up an arbitration assignment after she retired as a judge of the Supreme Court. And when I asked her why, she said, look, I do not want to be a shadow of what I once was. When judges go into post-retirement jobs at the gift of the government,
sure,
they sometimes look like pitiful men dressed in a little brief authority.
I think it's unfortunate that both you and our BJP supporter both say this is not new, this is the norm now. But Sanjay Hegde, so for what I understand, what you're saying is there are some tribunals like the NHRC that requires that it be manned or chaired by a judge, somebody with legal knowledge, legal experience. But you're also saying it didn't necessarily have to be a judge who has just retired 11 months before.
Absolutely. I would actually say that somebody who's retired at least 2 years ago, a cooling off period for all post-retirement appointments should now come in.
Has to come in. But the first reality check, the question that PKD Nambiar raised, is there a law? So there is no law. That is very worrying. There's no law in place that requires that Chief Justices or former judges don't get these appointments, and there is no law that talks about a cooling off period before they can start working either in the private sector or in, be chairs and heads of institutions like this. Jawahar Sarkar then, as has been pointed out by Sanjay Hegde, by PKD Nambiar, Arun Mishra is not the first judge to be given such an appointment, and of course Justice Gogai comes to mind. This is now becoming increasingly common. Judges with retirement gigs seems to be becoming the norm. Is that worrying?
You see, Justice Mishra, I'm sorry to mention him personally, is a very controversial judge. Even a layman would know that his record is very controversial. He has been in thrall of the government. In thrall of the government in more senses than one, and one can go on quoting. He was not, in our humble opinion, neutral enough to be heading such an august body. He has a record of judgments in favor of X and Y. That does not drag all that in now. But there were so many Supreme Court and High Court judges available if one had to select. The question that was asked is why him? Number one. Number two, the committee that he set up under this commission has two members. One who was a member of the ABVP and the RSS and still carries their tag. There's a second member who was in the Gujarat Mahila Congress. I mean, what is going on? I mean, have some respect for neutrality. So on the ground of neutrality, it has sullied its own reputation. On grounds of the report, there are other things to be said as well, in the sense that it comes up with this omnibus suggestion, send it to the CBI. Let us, before you suggest the CBI, remember the CBI is basking in the glory of non-conviction of Babri Masjid demolitions. I mean, so the CBI is not the last solution in this line. So making irresponsible, what shall I say, exaggerated estimations of the CBI is another thing that caught our eye. The other thing is what's happened, what's wrong with the judicial system in Bengal.
I will come back to you.
The police system has some problems. What's wrong with the judicial system that you recommend sitting there packed with pro-regime supporters that take the case out of Bengal? This is sum and substance of what he has said. It's a question of a calculated insult to the 48% people in Bengal who voted against the regime. That's all. As an ordinary citizen, I view it that way. I am not saying violence has not taken place. Violence has taken place.
And we are all in
agreement. Even when I was election chief, violence took place in the 98 and 99 parliamentary polls. But Bengal has a very sad tradition of violence.
Yes.
Having said that, I must say that this particular estimation of this particular series of violence has been quite biased. And therefore, the very purpose of setting up a commission or a committee falls flat. It's sad. It's sad. But that's partly because of the person heading it, partly because of those who were members of the committee, and partly because of recommendations that are rather insulting.
And in the process,
you pinpoint on violence, fair, but don't come up with swaggering suggestions.
And in the process, as you say, unfortunately, sullying the reputation of the NHRC itself.
The reputation of the NHRC fell the day, in my opinion, of an ordinary citizen, the day a person like Justice Mishra was appointed chairman, who is certainly not viewed as neutral.
Clearly not viewed as neutral. The comments he had made about the Prime Minister while he was still serving as Chief Justice, and of course he was opposed by the leader of the opposition, etc., for the appointment. But Dr. Shashi Panja, there was violence on the ground. We cannot deny that. And the fact that the NHRC has always had and needs to have as its chair somebody who has a legal background like a Chief Justice, this puts the TMC on some weak ground. Yes, you have come out openly to talk about the appointment of Arun Mishra, but what about also addressing the issues of violence on the ground?
We have said this many a times in many of your shows and also the other channels, and we really wish that everybody could also speak about the pre-poll violence. In fact, for the matter, the two incidents that you spoke today, you mentioned about 2nd of May and the two incidents, you named the persons. We, of course, condemn all kinds of violence. We do not subscribe by this, and we did not. What is the need for Trinamool Congress, which has won with such an overwhelming majority, to conduct a post-poll violence? Rather, we were upset about the pre-poll violence. The pre-poll violence which took place when the Election Commission was in total charge of the situation. Even for the matter, the 2nd of May, those incidents, even then the Election Commission was in charge. So overall, we saw that there were no visits of the NHRC even to Sitalkuchi. Sitalkuchi, you had 4 migrant laborers who had returned back just to vote. They were innocent voters. Why were they killed by this CRPF? We are still looking for those answers. We're still looking for the visits of NHRC to that place. So, you have discussed it all. In fact, all the previous speakers have spoken why we feel that the committee or the commission is biased. Why we felt that everything, in fact, when NHRC, the 2 members which Dr. Sharkar spoke about, it's very true. I mean, they have lost their credibility. You need to believe in an institution. We wish to believe in an institution. We want to believe in the judiciary. But
fair enough, ma'am. We need to believe in an institution. What has the government done on the ground? According to this report,
every incident has been looked into, ma'am. I'll tell you. We have been looking into every incident because Mamata Banerjee will not subscribe it, because they are trying actually to ruin the, the victory, the sweet victory, which the government,
the report says very few arrests have been made in contrast to the large-scale violence.
I will tell you that each of the cases we have to look into it, whether it is related to the polls or not. Not everything can be connected to the polls. Well, how can every incident, there may be a family dispute, they connected to the polls. It was not related. In fact, for that matter, if those who have been on ground pre-polls have seen the audacious behavior of the BJP, the speeches.
We want to distinguish between pre-poll and post-poll. Unfortunately, right now we're only talking about the post-poll
there were speeches where they said you have to liquidate the TMC workers.
Absolutely, we agree. This has been the most acerbic, and we say this every year. Every time there's an election, we say this is the
I just want to complete saying that BJP workers themselves, when they thought that they would win, and they went round with these statements, even the leaders did. But when it backfired, then they thought that they would be, the similar kind of assault will come on them.
Okay, I want to stick to this. Come back to this topic. PKD Nambiar, so as our panelists here are saying, Jawahar Sarkar, Sanjay Hegde, this, yes, this is not the first time that something like this has happened. But this is the first time it is so blatant, so obvious. The bias is put forward, no attempts made to even hide it. I'm going to read out some of the wording of this report. Entire might of the government machinery used for furthering political objectives of the ruling party. The disease may spread to other states too. It's high time that the rot is stemmed in the interest of having a vibrant democracy. The nation of 1.35 billion people watches us with bated breath. Is that the NHRC? So do you think this kind of wording displays, highlights the biasness of the report? Surely it is the job of the court then to make these statements, not of the NHRC while they're filing their report. They have to file the findings of their study.
In the court of Sarah Jacob in the evening, I also expect the same kind of a timing what you had given.
You are wasting your time, PKD Nambiar. The reality is, this is a 22-minute show. I've already come to you. I'm coming back to you. Please do not waste our time and the viewers' time with this. Please respond.
May I come to you?
Please respond. I have come to you. I have given you a platform.
What we are talking about today is the Chief Justice of India. There is an issue. If the Chief Justice of High Court of the West Bengal, there is an issue. The NHRC report, there is an issue. The Election Commission is questioning the government, there is an issue. The Governor of West Bengal, there is an issue. So who is not, everybody is, whomsoever is questioning the West Bengal government or the Mamata government, they are saying this is all illegal, they are all bulldozing on the federal structure. But whereas the truth is that there are 80,000 people who had not gone for a vacation to Assam post-poll after post-poll. Okay, let's make it 50,000 people.
No. You're wrong. I need to come in.
Please hold on.
I need to come in.
Please.
I haven't
Dr. Shashi Pancha, please let him finish.
Everybody, whomsoever is criticizing Mamata government is bad, and whereas none of the people who have died, the number of sisters of us who have been raped brutally there in West Bengal should not be criticized. If it is an NHRC, if they come up with a question on UP, then it is a sacred report. If there is a report which comes on West Bengal, then it is a questioning on an elected government and our federal structure. I think the hypocrisy of our double standards needs to be questioned, not the report of NHRC. NHRC has only given a report, Sarah. This report can be questioned in the court.
That is exactly what I said. It doesn't sound like just a report. It goes over and above even giving a verdict. High time that the rot is stemmed in the interest of having a vibrant democracy. A nation of 1.35 billion people watches us with bated breath. That doesn't sound like a mere report. Sanjay Hegde?
The truth. I'll tell you, one of the unions...
As you said, Mr. Nambiar, the court has to say that. It is the court's job, the court's role to pass that verdict, to make such strong statements. Sanjay Hegde?
The NHRC was, in this instance, largely a fact-finding mission. When you go as the court's commissioner, you give a very factual report of what you saw, what you observed, and leave it to the court to make a final call.
Yes.
Here you are almost hectoring the court. You are actually telling the court what to do, and it does smack of the tail wagging the dog. This is exactly why I should again reiterate that ultimately the judges of the constitutional courts are guardians of their own reputation.
Yes.
If they allow their reputations to be sullied by being seen as partisan or being very eager to accept government assignments, then impartiality and neutrality comes into question. It is best that we have a cooling off period.
All right.
And that the current judges sit together and decide that in future there will be a cooling off.
Absolutely. I think we can all agree on that. We should be able to agree on that. Because we are out of time. The last word, I'm sorry, PKD Nambiar, the last word will and should lie with the court after the TMC has given the court its verdict, its version of what has happened, and then the court gets to take a final ruling. That's at least how it should work. Thank you so much for joining us on Reality Check tonight. Bye-bye.